Hey guys, welcome back to Ranger Survival and Fieldcraft. I'm Andrew, and what I have for you today is another gear dump tabletop discussion. This is in preparation for going out and doing a couple overnights. So I'm kind of in the logistics phase right now, but wanted to do a kit that was minimalist, non-firearm, no food, 10-piece setup, similar to, the TV show Alone and that style kit, just to go out, do some hunting, live off the land a little bit, and maybe trap some small game, execute some skills, and just have a good time. So this is in preparation for that video, and I thought I'd do just a gear dump to show you what I'm going to be taking in. Stand by. All right, guys, so that first item is a primary all-around cutting tool that I would take if I had the ability to take larger tools with me, like an axe and a large saw. Would be just a simple multi-tool, because this multi-tool gives us everything we need to replace or supplement those items that we don't have in kind of a larger knife. This obviously gives us a blade and gives us a file, even another serrated blade that we can use when processing game. We've got that saw for fine notching, and then even what's probably most important is going to be those pliers and wire cutters, so we can actually cut down that wire or manipulate objects that we find out in the field. There's trash everywhere. Plus, in a cold environment like today, it's 20 degrees or so, we can have an extra pair of hands in those pliers to reach into the fire, pull something out, or manipulate finer objects like hooks or wire if we don't have a lot of dexterity in our fingers. So that multi-tool is going to be that primary cutting tool. I'm a big fan of subdued colors for military purpose, but in a civilian environment, a permissive environment, I would go for like a silver color like this, because if we drop this in the snow, we can grab our flashlight, even if it's dark, and look around the area and eventually find this, because of its bright color, that light will reflect off this. And even in a subdued color like all black, if we drop it in the snow, it will contrast. But more often than not, it's going to be in green vegetation, so we want something that we can see, especially if we drop this tool right here. So that's going to be our first item. It's that multi-tool. All right, so larger tool in a long-term situation, a saw is going to be one of the most efficient, calorie-saving tools that we can possibly have. This is that Silky Boy Katana 500. I've used this for several years now. A great bushcraft tool, just a great all-around tool that we can use not only for taking down large material. We can cut through sections that are at least a foot long with this saw, bring them back to camp, and process them down with the rest of our tools for woodcraft, firecraft, for shelter building. But this is very, very efficient. And you can see how large that cutting blade is, the teeth per inch. We're going to have a great time, easy time processing material, especially just a simple pull saw like this. But then that firewood makes you warm 3 times, cutting it down, processing it, and then finally lighting it on fire to stay warm in the shelter. This is going to be a great tool, very efficient, very calorie friendly here. So we're going to have that saw. That next big tool is just a nice axe. This is the Council Tool Pack Axe. It's about 22 inches, I think, in overall handle length, and then a nice head on it. It's about 1.5 pound, 2 pound head. And this thing will process material. Notice that the grind on the bit is actually Scandi in and of itself, so we could potentially do carving with this as well, or making shavings. But this axe, primary use is processing down those large sections of material taken with the saw, and then even shelter craft could be used for trapping, but mostly just a utility tool that's going to be used around camp for everything that we need, that these smaller tools, like our multi-tool, just can't do. So a good pack axe, one that we can swing one-handed and two-handed, choke up, and make shavings or finer carvings underneath the actual head of the axe. Hammer pull end, just an all-around good tool to have. All right, next for fire starting, just that large Ferro Rod, 6-inch by 1/2 inch. This is thousands upon thousands of strikes right here. Obviously, a lighter should be our first fire starting tool, but in a minimalist long-term situation, a Ferro Rod is going to give us fire. It's got a long lanyard that's bright colored. In case we drop it, we can find it, but then This is going to go around the neck so we don't lose it or drop it in the fire. And we always have our fire starting tool on us because that's going to be incredibly important. With that fire as a tool itself, we can make a lot of other things, but we're going to have to stay warm, especially in cold environment like today. So ferro rod for fire starting. Another item to use to go after game is going to be just snare wire, 20 gauge brass and steel snare wire. We can bring a lot more of this or more if we want to, but with this we can make simple snares to spring pull snares. We can use this for improvisation, for construction, for building different things, crafting different tools, everything we need with wire like this. There's a lot of different uses with wire, just like cordage, but having wire, especially for snares, for traps that are going to work while we are back resting at camp in our shelter. We want something that's passive that will work for us 24/7, even while we're not out actively hunting. So snare wire is going to be one of the items to go after small game and get a meal. Other small game, we've got fishing line. This is about 10 or 12 pound test line right here. Monofilament, green subdued color for the water, and then just a small container with hooks and tackle. Even got a small thread bobbin with extra line on it, just on the chance that we use all of this or we decide to use this for something else like a gill net. This is about 250 yards right here on this small bobbin. A lot of good line right there in a small package compared to the bobbins or the reels that they come in their normal packaging. They've got plenty of hooks, different sizes, plus some safety pins, needles, even a magnet, some sinkers, split shot, and then even a bobber, so we can create all different types of tools that we would need to fish and go after fish at the water's edge. So a good little neat kit right there. All right, another good item besides having fish line and wire is going to be cordage. For any survival kit, cordage is going to be one of the hardest things, if not the hardest thing, to recreate off the landscape with natural materials, especially if you don't understand how to do that effectively. So we bring as much cordage as possible. I would recommend we bring subdued colors if we want to, and then bright colors, or we could just bring all bright colors because those bright colored hanks of paracord, these are 25 meters in length each. These can be used not only for construction and shelter craft, tool craft, the same with the subdued colors, but we can use these brighter colors to create fishing lures, to go after fish in the water, enhancing our fishing kit and getting those larger fish to bite onto that hook, swallow it, and then we can reel in those fish. We can also use these larger hanks. These are each 50 meters long. We can use these 50-meter hanks, gut one of them, use the guts inside to make a relatively good gill net to place in the water as a passive trap for fish. We can just come back and check it routinely, gather the fish out of it, and help feed ourselves. So we have a way to actively go after game and passively go after game on top of being able to build and craft everything we need with parachute cord like this. This is what I would take into the field and what I would recommend. All right, next we just have a 2-quart bush pot, standard bushcraft container right here. We replaced the hard wire bail with snare wire. Just another technique. It's got a D-ring up top for the lid, nice and dirty inside from a lot of use. But that lid fits on nice and tight. We've got the spout, so we can actually pour hot liquid out of this thing. And then we've got bat wing handles. This is really important too, because if we don't have a way to suspend this bush pot over the fire, we're gonna wanna have a way to push this pot into the fire, boil that liquid or cook that food inside, and then pull it off fire easily. And so those handles really come in handy, no pun intended, for a bushcraft container like this, stainless steel, 1 layer. And we can even use, again, that multi-tool. Have the lid off and the container is hot. We can use the pliers to pull this thing into and then put it back in the fire if we need to. Another good thing to have multi-tools just for that purpose alone so we don't burn ourselves. And that 2-quart pot is going to be great for out here, especially being close to a water source. We can just fill this up, grab it by the bail, take it back to camp, boil that water, return to the water source, and repeat for as long as we need to. 2 quarts in one go is a lot of good water to stay hydrated, especially making it warm to keep ourselves warm, help protect ourselves, thermoregulate, and fight the cold out here. So 2-quart bush pot, good to go. All right, so hard to see inside the Sea Line bag, but this is a sleeping bag. It's a -40 sleeping bag, so it will be incredibly warm in the wintertime, like it's 20 degrees right now, and it's going to get colder at night. But that sleeping bag is the primary survival shelter item because it goes down to such a low temperature. We can get inside this thing naked, hang up our clothes next to a fire to dry out, and we'll still be warm inside this bag, inside an enclosed shelter, especially on a debris bed. So besides a sleeping bag, there's more to a survival shelter than anything else. We have to have something to sleep on, something to sleep in the way of the sleeping bag, and then something to sleep under to help contain all the heat that we're going to have. This bag alone will probably get us through a good night, but we want to add those other elements to our shelter to make a complete survival shelter. The sleeping bag, however, is going to be that main tool that's going to be inside that we sleep in, that's going to help protect us from the elements. All right, that 10th item, we've got this recurve bow. This is a 55-pound draw bow with a few arrows on it. We've got broadheads as well as some small game tips to go after a variety of game in the field. The deer are moving all over this place, and there's small game still using the frozen creek to travel on, so we've got opportunities out there to take game with this weapon right here. Like I said, 55-pound draw, which is strong enough to kill a deer or large game. Hopefully that's what we'll get. We got our deer license and our deer tag, so we're ready to go. Confident up to 30 yards with a good kill shot right in that 8-inch circle on the side of a deer. With small game, we can get closer than 30 yards and try to get under 20 to get a nice effective shot on small game that may be perched in a tree or hiding behind some brush. But with this weapon right here, we can take large game and feed ourselves. And then with all the other tools that we have, we can process that game out, use every bit of that animal, and survive, especially in a colder environment like this. It's going to be great for the cold because we can take the meat from that animal. We can actually process it down. In survival training in the military, they harped on cutting up your kill into meal-sized portions before you freeze it, especially in a cold environment, because it's going to be hard to process that cold game, frozen meat, unless you have larger tools like we do. So we can process that game out and actually string it up or store it in the cold, and it won't go bad. We just have to worry about other predators and scavengers going after our kill. But we've got this bow right here for our large game. We've got fishing line, hooks, and wire to go after small game and game in the water. So we've got a good system right here. And that's our last item. All right, guys, another down and dirty video today. Just another tabletop discussion with gear. 10-piece minimalist kit, no food, no firearms, just things that we can take into the field, things that are going to serve our purpose for survival, building shelter, firecraft, trapping animals, providing for food, staying warm, and then staying hydrated to make it in a long-term survival situation that's longer than our typical 3-day scenario of being found. So I really hope you liked this video. If you did like this video, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, leave me a comment in the comment section. I always appreciate everything you guys do for my channel. I want to thank you guys for everything you do for me, for this channel, for your likes, your views, your subscriptions, your comments, your feedback, and your shares. And I'll be back with another video as soon as I can, guys. Thanks.